see. Hopefully that will stay. And there. Cut it out. Cut it out. Greetings, family. This is Cassandra-Floyd. I know it's late, but whatever. I'm back from Alabama. I'm finishing my ice cream, so y'all just got to bear with me. I've been in this wormhole all day to prepare for today's topic that is hot on the lips of many. And that is about this movie, Sinners, that everybody is talking about. Greetings, Cosmic Love and Tasha Lee Mushana. Right on, right on. I took so many notes today. And I'm going to tell you what's fascinating, but not surprising at all, is the deep dives that I've been on for about the last month. Greetings, Maria Lunar. The deep dives I told y'all I've been on for about the last month, maybe 2 months. Every single solitary one fell right into place when I started doing this deep dive into this movie that just came out this past weekend. So, my name is Cassandra-Floyd, also known as the Daughter of the Fates, founder of the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence. And I'm going to tell you, there is no way that I'm going to get to everything tonight. This will probably be one of them 2, 3, 4-part series because the deep dive was deep diving. But what I am going to do is, because it's been a little, almost a week, maybe more than a week since I last did a live. And then I did the Zoom conference for people. A lot has happened in the last week, y'all. Like, a lot has happened. First of all, let's talk briefly, very, very, very briefly. Thank you, Java Watson, for the donation. She say hit it and quit it deep dive. Now I don't never do no hit it and quit it, child. It's impossible for me. Anyway, but what I will hit and quit is the news over the last freaking week and a half, starting with April 14th, when them loony women supposedly went into space with 6 women that was calling themselves, what was it, the Blue Union or whatever, Katy Perry, Gail King, and the other women. I've seen so many videos about that madness and people's response to it. I am going to do a live about that. Maybe this weekend. Luciana, boo. Hey, girl. I am going to do a live about it. Probably this weekend. Probably very short. Thank you for the donation, Rhonda Ray. But listen, I just did this thing, so I miss you too, girl. I thought about you all day. I literally got back at like maybe 1 o'clock in the morning today. So, from Alabama. So, you're on my list of people to see this weekend, actually. Anyway, so that's one thing. I am going to be talking about it this weekend. Even if I only spend like 30 minutes on it. But that Blue Union, 6 women going into space on some we feminist and this is a feminist project bullshit. I got something to say about that. It ain't going to be tonight. Next thing is also the news that is hot on the lips of everybody on Earth is the transitioning of Pope Francis, who was the 266th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. Madness. However, I told y'all last week I was going on vacation. I wasn't answering no calls. I wasn't answering no texts. I wasn't answering no emails. How about I got a text from a friend that I haven't heard from in 2 months, who was totally sick the last time I talked to him. He gonna send me a goddamn text like 3 o'clock in the morning talking about he's dead. That's all he texted was he's dead. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, what the hell? And of course it's 3 o'clock in the morning, so my default is to freak out. Like, is this a family member like sending text to everybody in his phone saying that he has died? Like, has he died? And then I go on his Facebook page and his Facebook page is gone. I was like, oh my God. And a few hours goes by and he texts me back and he was like, oh my God, that was crazy. I'm so sorry. But yeah, so I knew it was basically as soon as it happened. About the death of the Pope. Also, Sinners was released this weekend, which is what we're here to talk about tonight, which is quite interesting. It is quite interesting that this movie was released on Good Friday, and 2 days later, the Pope was dead. I'm just saying. This movie, Sinners, and I'm going to tell you, I've watched hours and hours. I'm telling you, my brain hurts, my eyes hurt. I've watched hours of like reviews about this movie. Some of them have actually been really, really good. Many of them have actually been really, really good. I promise you. And when I tell you I have been sitting either on this couch or at a restaurant. I ended up sitting at this restaurant for like 4 hours today, just researching for the live that I'm about to do tonight. So literally, like, it's been a 10-hour day. So thank you for the donations, okay? Because it's been a 10-hour work day for me, just going in on this thing, right? Okay. So I can tell you. I'm almost done. But this is the first thing I've eaten. This is the first thing I've eaten since I got back from the restaurant, and that was at 3. Okay, so I'm gonna wolf this down, and then we're gonna get to it. Something else that happened while I was on vacation. I rewatched. I don't know if you guys saw that series. It's just not even a series. It's a 2-part movie thing called Rebel Moon. I don't know if y'all watched that or not, but for whatever reason, I felt compelled to watch it this weekend with fresh new eyes. That's another one. Probably the next one I'm gonna go and do a deep dive on is that Rebel Moon Part 1. Yeah, this last week has been crazy, both personally and globally, politically and spiritually. I don't know the creep, but all right. The name of the movie is 2 movies, Part 1 and Part 2, called Rebel Moon. It came out last year, 2024. So let me just say, when I tell you, and I tell y'all often, it's been a long time since I've done an actual movie, like breakdown review type thing. But every time I sit down to do it, I'm so amazed by how deliberate everything is. That's why it's taken me so long to do another movie review. It's because I go in. Y'all know me. I go in. And as many movie reviews of this movie that I've seen today, I can tell you, I can get, and some of them have been good. Some of them have been really deep. I saw one sister who did her movie review was about nothing but the the hoodoo symbolism in the movie. That's the only thing she was covering. It was deep. I was like, okay, all right then. But I'll tell you something. Even with African spirituality, African spiritual traditions, so many people are becoming practitioners of hoodoo and voodoo and Ifa and Santeria and Condomble and you name it. Everybody's been, getting in there. But I am trying to tell you something that I am finding more and more and more, even people who are priests in the tradition, even people who have been priests for some time in the tradition, people's understanding of these cultural traditions, not just African cultural traditions, across the board, is so interesting to me. And this is not a critique. This is not a criticism. It is an observation of how thorough our opposition has been at keeping us just treading the surface. Just treading. I'm telling you, just treading the surface. So this movie here, I can tell you that I can promise you this. There is not a single video I am willing to bet money. That's how confident I am. There is not a single video on this here Al Gore's internet, you feel me, that is going to talk to you about the things that I'm going to talk to you that are in this movie. That once you see them are obvious in this movie. I haven't heard a single person yet get into some of the stuff that I'm like, damn, ain't nobody gonna mention this. Like some of this shit is obvious, and ain't nobody yet. As a matter of fact, let me tell you what happened today. I saw an interview with Ryan Coogler today that was so fascinating to me. What was this girl's name? This girl, her name is Hannah Flint. That's her YouTube channel, Hannah Flint. She is a writer for theface.com, okay? Like a freelance writer. She interviewed Ryan Coogler and I don't remember the other brother's name, but the brother who played Delta, what was his name? Delta Slim? Was that his name? I still got to get acquainted with everybody's character names. But anyway, yeah. She interviewed the brother who played Delta Slim. Those are the only two people she interviewed. Okay, from the movie was Ryan Coogler and this brother named Del. When her interview, y'all have to watch this interview. When because this girl, this interview was crazy. You know how sometimes you get like, God, what do they call it? You get embarrassed for the person. There's a word though where it's like, I forget what it's called, but it's like when you see something that is awkward and uncomfortable and your ass get embarrassed, like you right there. This interview was so interesting because this young girl, secondhand embarrassment. That's yes. I was so uncomfortable watching this interview. She is interviewing Ryan Coogler. And so she is like, I want to get the inside scoop. That's what she's telling me. I don't know what her background, her ethnicity is, but she's like, I want to get the background scoop. She's a young girl. She's a millennial. And she is not trying to embarrass him. She's just like, this is what I was thinking about when I saw it. You know what I'm saying? What do you think? Am I right? Right? She's trying to understand like if what she saw is actually what he was thinking about when he wrote the movie or when he directed the movie. And so for example, she made this comparison that has been made, I think the first person historically to make the comparison. She says, Karl Marx was the first person I know of that made this comparison between vampires and capitalism, right? This guy, okay, so first of all, you should know that I didn't know this until I started watching, videos today, that Ryan Coogler has a speech impediment. And so there were moments where it took him a little longer, to answer. But that's not what I was witnessing. Like when she asked him, was he thinking about when he was making this movie, was vampirism like a metaphor for capitalism or whatever? And he was like, oh, is what you can, there are a lot of things that you can get from the movie, right? It was like obvious sidestep into some of the deeper shit she was asking it. Like she y'all have to watch this interview. So go into your YouTube, you feel me, and put in Hannah with two N's, Flint, Flint, with Ryan Coogler. That interview was something. It was something the hell else. And even the dude that she interviewed from the movie who played Delta Slim, he was tap dancing and sidestepping her questions too. And she was asking deep and penetrative questions. I was like, okay, girl, y'all like these questions, right? You can tell she's like contemplating, deep thinking about some of these things. Baby, they was like, no, we thought this was gonna be like some little simple, superficial questions. And they were sidestepping a lot of her questions. I was like, whoa, that was deep. Anyway, all right. So all of that to say, we about to get started. And I'm just going to let you know. And I am not opposed to being wrong. You feel me? So if you do happen to, while you are combing through these deep dives and breakdowns or whatever, this is also what you call it. What's the word they use? Oh my God. I'm giving away shit. I forget what you call it. I can't think. It's 11:30. It's 11:49. Spoilers. This is a spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen the movie, which you should, y'all know my position. Black people, black directors, black producers, even if the movie is trash, spend your money, go see the shit while it is in the theaters. So if you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie. I myself will be going to see the movie again tomorrow, because now that I done got through all the little anticipation and what, and shit, now I got to go back, you feel me, and watch it. And everything that I've done today is just by memory of what I experienced in the movie theater, you feel me. But now I got to go back and watch it so I can actually take some notes while I'm in the theater. Okay. So that's the spoiler alert. If you have not seen the movie, you do not want to listen to this, because I'm not just giving a deep dive, baby. I am unveiling a whole bunch of shit. Okay? I'm unveiling a whole bunch of shit that I promise you nobody else is going to talk to you about. And I don't want to give it away that hard before you go see it. So that's it. Okay? Sinners movie. So the reason that I chose the first thing that we're going to talk about, Java say, let me get my wine. Okay. I will go slow. Sit till you get your wine. So the first thing that we're going to talk about in the movie is the reason that I chose the thumbnail picture that I chose. It was obvious as soon as the movie came on. So let me just tell you really quick how I have my notes broke down, okay? And how I am going to have to walk through this thing with you, because, again, I got to go see it tomorrow again so I can fill in my notes. But I'm going to show you just so you know what I'm working with, okay? So the first thing that I have listed out is the red and blue, okay? Which is obvious throughout the entire, like it ain't even subtle. The red and the blue, the duality of red and blue that I've been talking to y'all about for damn near 3 years now, is everywhere in this movie. That's the first thing, okay? Now, in partnership with this discussion on the red and blue, I just started talking to y'all about this last maybe 2 weeks ago, is in a lot of mythology and a lot of symbology in several different cultures, this concept of the red and blue isn't just about red and blue. It actually corresponds to the second big theme in this movie, which is obvious, which is twins. Okay, so I will be talking to you about the red and blue. I will be talking to you about how the red and blue corresponds to many, many, many mythological twins in history. Mythological twins and the stories that surround these mythological twins. Okay, the obvious mythological twins that is the most prevalent in our mind is the twins Gemini. Now, for those who do not know, I'll get into that later. But Gemini, okay? But Gemini as a constellation, right, is called different things in different cultures. We'll talk about that, okay? Now, with that being the starting point, the red and the blue, and the significance of the mythological significance of twin stories, then obviously we're going to talk about the first two characters, which is Smoke and Stack, or Elijah and Elias, or Elias, however you pronounce his name. Okay, those are the brothers. One is seen even in the thumbnail. Smoke is the blue twin. Okay, Smoke is the blue twin who always wears the blue hat, and Stack is the red twin who always wears the red hat. Okay, even in that picture that I have in the thumbnail, it's not just that they wear the blue and the red hat. They drive a red car, and behind them is the image of the sawmill that they bought, and the sawmill is blue, right? That's right out the gate. Okay, so we'll talk about the details around the twins, especially as they represent both the duality of red and blue and the historical mythological significance of the twins. Okay, all right. Then of this relationship, because these represent, even though they are twin brothers, they represent extreme dualities as represented by the red and blue. Within the context of those extreme dualities, right, these opposing dualities, is their love interest. The blue dudes, Smoke's love interest is a dark skinned, heavy set, quote, nappy haired, black ass woman. And then red, his love interest represents the extreme opposite of that. His love interest is represented by a white presenting, very thin, very young, white skinned Mary. Annie and Mary. Okay? This becomes important because in this duel, cut it out. Cut it out right now. Man, in this duality between the red and the blue, it is not an accident that their love interest represent the same thing, the extreme opposition and duality between black and white. Right here in the actual physical manifestation of their love interest, these two women. Okay. The story centers around, even though they play a huge role in this movie, the story centers around this young man whose name is Sammy. Okay, I'm just going through the list right quick before we get into the nitty gritty. All right, so Sammy, whose name is Samuel Moore in the movie, he plays a very defining and strategic central role in the movie. We'll get into that. Then I have another section here called The Love and Hate of Black Joy. The Love and Hate of Black Joy. And this is just how I'm going to break it down to you. Like I said, it's probably going to take 2 or 3 days to do. 2 or 3. Then I have another section here entitled Freedom versus Power. And then Irish whiteness, the history of the KKK. This shit is so deep and diabolical. Hoodoo and voodoo. Christianity in the church. Black criminality versus white criminality. The Asian characters, what they represent. Nah. The Choctaw, baby. Everybody that I've seen so far talk about the Choctaw presence in this movie. It was like a 3-second, like, oh yeah, and there was some native people up in there. This was so deep. The section on birds. Now, the reason I put birds is because there is an enormous amount of bird symbolism in the movie that I think I only saw one person talk about at length. And I still feel like her analysis was very, very, very superficial. Just skating on the surface. No depth. We gonna get into that. The fire symbolism, I'm gonna go back into that. Music as sacred. Mexican rage. And all the Mexicans that are coming out in opposition to the movie, but with criticisms of the movie, symbols and sacred objects. The master vampire Remick. Yo. This section right here blew my whole wig, peeled my whole shit back. The female dynamics of all the female characters. The female dynamics. This is another one. That's good. Ryan Coogler, hadn't wrote much about him yet. Our responses, hadn't wrote much about that. That'll be my after I go back and watch it again. Good versus evil. Okay, so good versus evil. That's another section, but you can't see it on the side in green. I got sleight of hands type shit. Sleight of hands type shit in this discussion about good versus evil. Sleight of hands type shit. Right? Ancestors. Black ancestors versus white ancestors. I don't know if I'm gonna go into this deep, but there was a lot that happened in the year 1930. A lot that happened in the year 1932. So I put like World War I, Jim Crow, chain gang, sharecropping. This could be a whole like dissertation of depth. I do not know that I'm gonna go that deep, but there were some really interesting. I didn't write any of them because I wasn't trying to go off on other wormhole. Hold on. No. Sorry about that. All right. So, but like I said, just the history of the period of time that this unfolded, this could go a myriad of ways. So, Zuhara, listen, I'm trying to tell you, you need to go see it. I don't want, because this is gonna be a play-by-play. I'm giving away everything. So you might want to go see it first. Just saying. Okay, and then I have the last two sections. I think it's the last two. I might be wrong, but definitely black music versus white music. Obviously, it was a huge theme in the movie. And the last, and I haven't gotten into that deep yet, but the vampire thing or history or whatever, symbolism, mythology versus and life versus death as it unfolds in this movie. So that's a lie. You feel me? Hold on. I gotta put some on this. Oh yes, I did have something else here. Hold on. Yes. And then I have on this back page, center movie extras. This was extra little stuff that was more historical as it corresponded to the time, which was quite interesting. I probably went into that a little deeper than I should have, but I digress. Okay, so I think what we're gonna do first is talk about, we're gonna go to our Bible number 2 is Barbara G. Walker's The Women Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets. And then also I have for this conversation, her Bible number 3, Barbara Walker's Dictionary of Symbols and Sacred Objects. And then and then we'll clarify some things. Okay. All right. So the reason I'm going into this, because I wanted to read y'all. I feel like this is a great place to start, as a matter of fact, since I think we all know that this movie is a vampire movie. Hopefully y'all know that. I think at this juncture, y'all have all heard enough from other people to know that the movie is a vampire movie. Okay. And so knowing that, I was like, let's see what Barbara Walker has to say about vampires. And she got something to say. Because we've talked about vampires on this channel, and our understanding, because I had not read this yet, our understanding of vampires, especially remember when we talked about the bitch goddess and how there is this ongoing discussion on YouTube and on TikTok about, why is it that vampires are always wealthy? Why is it that vampires always seem to come from the antebellum South? You feel like slave owning aristocracy South, right? And how they're the werewolf is always like the rogue, like just straight bestial. Even in forget what series it was called. It was called I can't remember. But anyway, how the wolf is like always synonymous with unintelligent, just bestial, just driven by just straight desires, and how the vampires are, like they are representative of the aristocracy, of the wealth, of the old age, of the old aristocracy, right? Well, and I was okay to accept that. Child, well, let me tell you what Barbara Walker got to say. I ain't gonna read the whole thing, but you need to be going, if you have the book, you need to be going to page 1039 to find out what Barbara Walker got to say about the history of this. So deep. I feel like it's a great way to start this discussion, is demystifying the mythology of vampires. Okay, listen. Yes, right? So listen. The primal notion that all life depends on the magic of menstrual blood or the blood of the moon, as some primitives say, evolved a corresponding notion that the dead crave blood in order to make themselves live again. Right out the gate. Right out the gate. You heard? Greeks believed The shades, we're going to talk about this. Because the concept of the shades comes up in this movie. Okay? The Greeks believed that the shades of the dead could be recalled from the underworld by offerings of blood, which they greatly desired. Therefore, blood was the essential ingredient of necromancy. Homer's Odysseus consulted the dead with a necromantic ceremony. Quote, I took the sheep and cut their throats over the trench, and the dark blood flowed forth. And Io, the spirit of the dead that be departed, gathered them from out of Erebus. End quote. Ever since Homer's time, Western nations had fixed the idea that blood could recall the dead to life. Okay? At least temporarily. Regular supplies of blood would impart a kind of life to the undead, that is, vampires. They were called forth by the moon, their original mother, who also called forth the blood that made the living. Since the moon was the original home of the dead and the source of rebirth, it was closely associated with vampires. Breton churchmen, still not altogether certain of the physiology of conception in the Middle Ages, claimed that a woman who exposed her naked body to moonlight would conceive and bear a vampire child. Listen here. Listen. Okay. Listen. They say if the bitch walked through the woods naked and the moon was full, her ass would get knocked up with a vampire. You feel me? Yet common folk continued to express in their customs the older belief that the souls of all children waited in the moon to be born. Scottish girls refused to be married at any time except during the full moon for fear they otherwise might not have children. New brides in the Orkneys went to a circle of megalithic stones locally called the Temple of the Moon to pray for babies. The idea that the moon provided vital force for both the living and the dead persisted throughout the centuries and reappeared as emphatically as in popular vampire literature only 100 years ago. Occult, the vampire, instructed his servants to carry his body to a high mountain where it could be touched by the first rays of the rising moon. When this was done, the vampires sprang back to life, saying, Fountain of my life, once more the rays restore me. Death, I defy thee. An English friar once said, quote, the moon is the mother of all humors, and the body's most important life-giving humor was the blood. Therefore, vampires walked wherever the moon shone, and they might find blood. The church taught this, and no layman dared to doubt it. Balkan countries had certain wizards who specialized in bottling vampires, a technique they probably learned from Arabian magicians who put jinn or genie into bottles or lamps, like the lamp of Aladdin. When a Bulgarian village panicked over a purported outbreak of vampirism, the specialist was called. He would solemnly identify the offender's grave, bait his bottle with blood, catch the restless spirit, and cork him up and burn the bottle. This is important too, this little story here. The Reverend Montague Summers mentions a sure cure for vampirism, which would have been simple and eliminated all the dramatic, time-consuming, ultimately ineffective classical measures such as exorcism, crucifixes, garlic, silver bullets, stake through the heart, and so on. This simple solution was to place a consecrated host in a vampire's grave and which would immobilize him for forever. However, Summers said this remedy, quote, was not to be essayed since it savors the rashness and profaneness of God's body, end quote. Summer, an earnest believer, evidently thought it was better to let a community be ravaged by marauding vampires than to profane the Eucharist bread. Let's see, blah 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 blah. Okay, let's see. All right. A thinly disguised reason for the never failing popularity of vampire stories was, of course, their suggestion of sinful sex. Kissing and biting ran close together in both mental and actual behavior, and the attack of a male or female vampire on a victim of the opposite sex surely bore the same resemblance to a love bite. One of the all-time classics of vampire literature, Pressed Varney the Vampire, titillated Victorian male readers with scenes more suggestive of rape than of demonology. Quote, that young and beautiful girl uh, exposed to so much terror, her beautiful rounded limbs quivering with agony of her soul, the glassy, horrible eyes of the figure ran over the angelic form with a hideous satisfaction, horrible profanation. He drags her head to the bed's edge. He forces it back by the long hair still entwined in his grasp. With a plunge, he seizes her neck in his fang-like teeth, end quote. The church sanctioned vampire superstitions in order to draw converts through fear. And the church rituals officially established the burning or piercing of suspected vampires in their graves. Even in the past century, this was still done by priests in the Balkans. Um, Jean-Jacques Rousseau showed the evidence for the existence of vampires resting on much the same foundations as the evidence for the existence of God. Quote, if there ever was in the world a warranted and proven history, it is that of the vampires. Nothing is lacking. Official reports, testimonials of persons standing, of surgeons, of clergymen, of judges, the judicial evidence is all embracing, end quote. The most famous fictional vampire of them all, Count Dracula, did have a real history. He was a feudal baron of sadistic temperament, Vlad the Impaler, of the Little Dragon clan. That is, Dracul. He liked to impale his enemies on stakes while he cut, roasted, and ate pieces of their flesh from their still living bodies. The fear engendered by this monster was such that his serfs believed he would return to plague them after his death. Of course, no such revenant has ever reappeared, but the Count's clan nickname, at least, seems truly immortal. Okay, so there you go. Let me put one here too. So the short version of that story is that the origin, like everything, the origin of every monster, the origin of every monster story, the origin of all things bad is the hatred of the mother. Right out the gate, that's what she say. That the origin of vampire stories is our ever longing and consistent belief throughout all the cultures and all the ages that it is the mother's moon blood that is the source of all life, both to those who are being born and those who are needing to be reborn. The source of all things, child, listen, okay? Now, that was the first thing I wanted to read to you. So let's get into, now that we have a basis for, so if we go into this movie with this understanding, because when I talk about sleight of hand shit, I tell y'all this all the time. Everything is a sleight of hands. If in the movie you are, quote, rooting for who you are being told are the good guys, typically it's some sleight of hand shit, and you are rooting to destroy the mother. That's some hard shit to accept, especially since we have grown accustomed to this idea of the vampire as synonymous with exploitation, colonization, the white noble aristocracy, hypocrisy. You feel me? Like, that's some hard shit to make peace with, especially since this movie went so hard in the whole idea of drawing that connection to vampirism or parasitism, right? To the antebellum South, to the South, who was still struggling, Black people in the South who were still struggling to make a clean break from the betrayal of the Restoration, all of this shit, right? So for me, navigating through this movie, where there are some things that obviously won't make you mad as hell in the movie, but still going back to this idea, when I go to watch movies, I'm telling you, no matter what the movie is, I go in now with the brain that I have. How are they going to be attacking the mother in this movie? What is going to be the evidence that every single solitary movie that is coming out, I don't care what it is going to be an assault on the presence of the mother. Every time, everyone, I don't care. I don't care. Cartoons, Disney flicks, you name it. I go in with the expectation that in some way they are going to be slandering. They are going to be reveling in the destruction of the images of the mother. I'm convinced of it. Okay, so now we're gonna start. So that's the first part. We didn't walk through that, the whole vampire thing. We're gonna get a little deeper into it, but that's good for right now. So the whole thing about the duality of red and blue in this movie. Now, I'm not just gonna do, because I've done it before. If you want to go deep into the duality of the red and blue, go back and watch the few videos. All you have to do is type in red and blue of the videos that I've done about that. This red and blue discussion is going to be specifically around the whole relationship between the duality of the red and blue and twins in mythology. Twins in mythology and the duality of the red and blue, and how that's like juxtaposed. Okay, so starting with obviously the most popular twins. The most popular twins that no matter where you are on Earth, when you talk about twins in mythology, most people are going to say, oh, the sign of Gemini. These are the twins. These are the main twins, because there's twin energy in many astrological signs. But the twins of heaven, the heavenly twins, these twins are located within the sign of Gemini. These twins are based on two stars that represent the two heads of the twins called Castor and Pollux. Okay. The short version of this story of the twins, of the celestial or the heavenly twins, is that Castor and Pollux are half brothers. Okay, now the way that worked out, let me see if I can draw this for you really quick, because it took me a little bit to get my head around. As a matter of fact, I do have it written down somewhere. Hold on. Where's that other book? Here it is. Okay, so remember I was telling y'all I was starting to redo this deep dive into the meaning of my name. So Cassandra is a twin. Like I told y'all, I've been on this twin shit for a few weeks now. Okay, so this movie coming out was just like perfect timing. So I told you that Cassandra in Greek mythology, I just found out recently, is a twin. And I had been saying to you guys how it was so crazy how even though I am not a twin, I was really for a long time in my life, I really resonated with twin energy. I don't know, I felt connected to twin energy. And this is before, I was raised a Christian, so I didn't have any frame of reference for it. But it wasn't until I got my chart done. I got my chart done in 2019. I got my chart done, and so up until the end, I didn't know nothing about my moon. I didn't know nothing about my rising. You feel me? The bare minimum that I knew about astrology was I was a Virgo. That's all I knew, right? So it wasn't until 2019, you guys, that I got a complete chart done. And this twin energy, resonation that I'd always had was because my ascendant is Gemini. I was like, oh my gosh, right? Well, the story gets deeper because these two, quote, brothers in the mythology, Castor and Pollux, are a part of a story where Leda, I don't know if y'all remember this. We had to read it in high school. It was a poem called Leda and the Swan. It's actually kind of fucked up. Leda and the Swan is a poem about this story, about how Zeus, even though Leda was married to the king of Sparta, she would go down to the lake every day and she would bathe in the lake. And Zeus, who was essentially stalking her, quote, fell in love with her. And how come every time he, quote, fall in love with a bitch, it is synonymous with him changing himself into some exotic animal and then raping her. And then she ends up having children. This is what happened. Leda was already pregnant. She goes down to the river or the stream or whatever to bathe like she did daily. And Zeus, admiring her from afar, wants to take her. So he turns himself into a swan and rapes her while she's bathing. So she becomes pregnant with two sets of twins. Okay. And so the first set of twins is, let me see, let me not get this wrong. It is let's see. Okay, so there's the divine twins. So she has 4 babies in this scenario. She already got kids, but she as a matter of fact, one of her children is Cassandra, who is also a twin. So she's already had a set of twins, Cassandra and her fraternal brother, whose name is Helenus. That's another story. But Cassandra and her fraternal brother, Helenus, and then she has a pair of divine twins. This is Leda. She has a pair of divine twins because she gets raped by Zeus. Those twins are Pollux, the star Pollux, right? And his, let's see, Pollux, and who is the sister? Shoot, did I not write it down? Maybe I put it here. Pollux. I guess it's messed up that I didn't put it here, but I won't talk about it now, but I'm gonna look it up tomorrow because the only 2 of these 4 that become important is Castor and Pollux. Castor is the mortal twin. I can't believe I didn't put because they both had sisters. Pollux is the divine, one is the male divine twin. Castor is the male mortal twin. The story is that they, even though they are half twin brothers, they because they have different fathers, they are very, 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 very close. And when Castor gets killed, this is the mythology, during the Trojan conflict, when Castor gets killed, his brother Pollux is devastated. He gets revenge on the man that kills him, and he begs his father Zeus, please, this is important. Please let me share my immortality with my brother. Okay? Zeus's response, moved by his son's willingness to share his immortality with his brother, made it so that that they would change places, right? So how does it go? It was like while one would be in the realm of the Olympians, aka heaven, aka daytime, the other would be in Hades, and they would periodically switch places, right? These twin brothers that represent duality. One would be in heaven, or they would, one would be in heaven, and one would be in, no, they would move together cyclically. This represents, listen to me, this represents in all these mythologies the dual nature of the single entity. the dual nature of the single entity. We see these dualities as separate and two distinct entities, if you will. This story of Castor and Pollux, because this is just the Greek version or telling of the story. So there are other tellings of the story where the person, the female that gives birth to, quote, these two head stars that are in the constellation of Gemini, through all these other mythologies, it's the goddess Venus, it's the goddess Aphrodite, it is the goddess Oshun. It's the goddess Oshun, right? Doesn't Oshun give birth to Ibeji? Ibeji is Gemini. Ibeji is Castor and Pollux. Okay, so this story again, yes, the mythology is important because it gives you kind of like a story, a frame of reference, but it is a mythological story about astrological events. So these heavenly twins represent Venus, represent the energy of Venus. Why do I say that? Because the first of all, several things. So Venus. Ooh. Okay. So Venus is the mother of these two twins. She is considered the mother of these two twins. Their quote cyclical move from the Olympian realm, or quote heaven, to the realm of Hades, quote the underworld, is the energy of what we think is two different stars, which is Venus. Venus as what? The morning star, and then she changes places and she becomes the evening star. Venus as a singular entity, right? And so in these stories, for example, the Castor and Pollux story, I saw this video today. This guy was talking about how there's this Mexican content creator going off about how Ryan Coogler basically stole the whole movie from dusk to dawn and just made it all Black characters, right? Like he, quote, stole this Latin story about vampires in the church and the religious symbolism and just superimposed it on some Black characters. He was wrong. This is an old mythological story being retold with Black faces. It ain't his story. It's not Tarantino's story. It is an old story because it's literally in the title, From Dusk to Dawn. The first scene that you see in this movie, one of the earlier scenes, the first scene you see in this movie is the sun is about to set. This is dusk. This is a foreboding of what is to come when you transition into the realm of Hades or the realm of the underworld at dusk. When the sun, right, the hero, right, becomes, how in the world? And my phone has been acting janky all freaking week. Whatever. When when I tell y'all, damn it. Anyway, okay, so dusk till dawn, right? This opening scene where you are introduced to the dark side character, right? And he is literally running to where he's going as the sun is going down. As the sun is going down behind the horizon, this is dusk, right? And the whole thing is we got to survive till dawn. They say that right in the movie. We got to survive till dawn. After the crescendo, when they recognize what it is they up against, they're like, damn, we got to survive till dawn, right? This is old mythological motif. This struggle between, quote, good and evil, between, quote, red and blue, between, quote, black and white. But all of these dualities represent the same energy. These oppositions as told through these stories, transitioning through different people's interpretations. Typically, those interpretations are hostile to the mother. Okay, now, so that's one aspect. Castor is considered the son of man, right? Pollux is considered the son of Zeus. Okay, some mythological stories that the research that I did equates these two to the energy of the red and blue. The actual physical stars, Castor and Pollux, the Castor star is considered the red star. The red, like, is that right? Let's see. No, the Castor star is considered the blue star. Is considered the blue star. The Pollux star is considered the red star. So, who are some mythological twin-esque characters of the past that correspond with the red and the blue, as represented by these two stars in the sign of Gemini? Let me just tell you, this ain't my opinion. This is research. Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were considered twin energies representing the energy of Gemini. Adam literally meaning red or red clay, and Eve representing the blue, right? Enki and Enlil, Jacob and Esau, Cain and Abel, and the tree of life as the tree of, quote, good and evil. Okay? Now, if you think that's deep, let me just tell you, the tree of life as good and evil, twin energy, good and evil, the tree of life, guess what? Go to Disney. There's a show on Disney right now. I happen to love it. There's a show on Disney right now called The School of Good and Evil. The men that run these two schools are black male twins. The one who represents evil is dressed in blue, and the one who represents good is dressed in red. Right there. The School of Good and Evil. Java Watson is bugging. Yes. Okay. Okay. Now, okay, so the most obvious and most recent personification of this red and blue duality is the story of Romulus and Remus. Romulus and Remus, child, cut it, get your fingernails out my dress. Romulus and Remus is obviously the story, the mythological story of the founding of Rome. Okay? Romulus is represented by the red and Remus is represented by blue. In these stories, y'all, every single solitary story about these mythological twins, one must die. Even the actual stars, Castor died before he could experience immortality. Okay? Every single story, one of the twins must die. Every single story, one of the twins must die. You feel me? Romulus, and a lot of these stories, it's not that the twins just die. In several of these stories, one twin kills the other for power. Romulus and Remus. Romulus, once they become grown, you feel me, kills his twin brother Remus and becomes the figurehead or the fatherhead of the founding of Rome. Okay? With red symbolism everywhere in the Roman Empire. Why would red symbolism be everywhere in the Roman Empire? Because Rome literally means we are the children of Mars. What is Mars, if not the red planet? Let me get deeper on y'all. I won't. But there's some depth to this story, right? Okay. I want to tell y'all so bad, but I'll bypass it. Okay, so in this story of the twins, right? One must die. Okay. Whether it is a metaphysical death you know what I'm saying? Or a metaphorical death, or whether there is a literal death. Okay? Cain kills Abel. Now, what do we learn about this? Is taking too long. What do we learn about the story of Cain and Abel and why it was significant in goddess worshiping society? Because this story of Cain and Abel, as told by the Bible, as told by the Torah, or told by the Old Testament, it's not about two actual people. Cain in the story represents the last remnant of goddess worshiping society. Why? Because Cain is an agriculturalist. Cain still is an agriculturalist. Abel represents this new clan or class of people that are like doing ritual sacrifice and shit, like killing animals. Okay. And up until this point, the agriculturalist did not use animal ritual sacrifice in the worship of deity. Remember me telling you that there were periods where anthropologists can go back and say, this is the period in history where human beings started using ritual animal sacrifice. That up until this point, that women's moon blood was the blood offering for ritual, and there was no ritual animal sacrifice. And so the story is, right, that God says, look, I need both of y'all to take the fruits of your labor, and I need y'all to make an offering to me. And so Cain took the first food from his harvest, because he an agriculturalist. He took all this nice food, this grain and this, and plated it up to give it to God as an offering, to Yahweh as an offering. And then Abel killed a goat to give the goat as an offering. And God rejected Cain's offering. This is about the new, quote, Yahweh God, this bloodthirsty war God who required blood as valid sacrifice and offering. So the reason that Cain, quote, got mad, the reason Cain, they just reduce him and say, oh, he was just jealous, he was just mad, right? The reason he got mad is because this God who had taken the first harvest of all his labor was like, where the meat at? Where the blood at? You feel me? He had rejected the last remnants of the goddess worshiping societies. This was a metaphor, this story about Cain and Abel, and this is why Cain killed his brother. It's like, this some bullshit. Oh, you want some blood, God? You want some blood? I got blood for you. I'm a ghost your favorite. I'm a ghost your favorite. But in the story too, one of the twins must die. Okay. Now, so all right. So what? so another thing that is interesting is somebody asked the question. One of the content creators asked the question. I think it was in their title. It's like, what is going on with all this twin energy in 2025? I was like, I'm not aware. Let me see what's going on. Do you know that there are so many movies that either have or are coming out in the year 2025 about twins? Let me tell you. In 2025, Sinners, Brothers, the sixth installment of the Predator movie is about twins who get abandoned. Oh, let me tell you. About twins who get abandoned. I ain't gonna go that far yet. The Monkey, Twinless, is interesting. Twinless. I was like, what the fuck does twinless mean? Twinless is it's big in like psychological circles. If you are a twin and your twin dies, then you are considered twinless. And they have whole like support groups and shit the world over for people who have lost their twin. Their twin has died. And there's a movie this year called Twinless about people who have lost their twin. And then when I was reading about that, they were like, there was a whole list of, quote, famous twinless twins. A whole list of famous twinless twins. I was like, oh my God. The list was long. Okay. The Uninvited, Mickey 17, Alto Knights, The Shrouds, famous. And then I told y'all about the School of Good and Evil, but that's old. But the rest of those, all of those are coming out this year, and all of them are about twins. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 movies this year coming out about twins. Okay? I think that's something worth digging into. I'm going to tell you why. Because I watched an astrological breakdown by the guy that I told y'all I like. He has his YouTube channel is called Astrology Report. Astrology Report. And he did this whole live maybe about a year ago. And apparently, because of the way time has changed, he is saying that there is a whole school of thought among astrologers that we are not actually in the age of Aquarius, that we're actually in the age of Gemini. Right? I watched this a year ago. Hadn't thought about it since then until I went into this research today. There are 10 movies out in 2005 about twins. This girl asked, what's up with all this twin movie energy? And then I was like, oh my God, this guy did do this thing last year about, are we actually in the age of Gemini? And then he gives all of these, quote, receipts and evidence that we might actually not be in the age of Aquarius, that we actually might be in the age of Gemini. Mind-blowing, deep dive shit, but fascinating nonetheless. Okay? All right. So let's see. So this will... So we'll transition. We'll pivot from there. Let's see. What about the Metov twins, the Georgia twins, the recent twin situation, plus the twin movies? I don't know. I don't know nothing that you're talking about except the twin movies. What is that? Metcalf twins? I don't know nothing about them. The Georgia twin, the Metcalf twins, don't know nothing about them. Don't know nothing about no Georgia twins. I don't know what recent twin situation. I don't know about the recent twin situation, and then the twin movies. So you don't have to paraphrase. It's better yet, email me so I can add that to my deep dive. Email me all that little stuff you just said. Put it in an email so I can have it, so I can check it and put it in my deep dive notes. I don't know none of these names. Austin and Hunter Metcalf with Carmelo Anthony. I don't know none of them is. I don't know none of them is. I ain't heard none of them names. Make sure to email me at evoeme. Girl, you making the most noise right now. Girl. Ugh. evoemetemp@gmail.com. You're doing too much, little heifer. Okay. The recent track meet stabbing. Track meet stabbing. Child, all of this is new to me. Make sure you put that in the email because now I'm fascinated. Okay. All right. So I think that was a good overview because now we're going to talk about these twins. All right. So, girl, you're doing too much. And you know you're doing too much. Go on about your life. Yes, go on about your life. Go on about your life. Ugh. Okay. So, no. I said no. Girl, stop playing. Where my little ball at? Because now you're doing too much. My little ball at. Whoop. Okay. All right. Don't make me trying to slip back over here neither. Okay. Girl, you gonna stop playing with me, heifer. Let's see. So that is done, except that. Oh, you know what? There was one more thing I wanted. Damn, I thought I put that in there. But I do want to leave that open. Okay. All right, that's that. Okay. So let's talk about these dudes. Okay. The first thing I did was, and I think several people did this. They looked up the etymology of their names. So in the movie, the blue guy is Smoke, right? That's his nickname. His real name or his government name is Elijah. His brother's name, who is Stack, his government name is Elias. Elias. This is significant, okay? Both names have the same etymological meaning. Elijah and Elias. Elijah means my God is Yahweh. My God is Yahweh. And it also means, like in terms of his story biblically, opponent of Baal. Baal, opponent of Baal. Elijah is the character who supposedly ascended into heaven on a chariot of fire. Okay? It is interesting in terms of the etymology. The most common spouse name for someone named Elijah is Mary. Isn't that interesting? Let me see. Let me show you what I mean. So Elijah is the oldest brother. He's the one in blue. Okay. He's got old brother energy. And then Elias, right, is the one in red. He's more playful, jokes a lot, shit like that. Elijah's love interest is the dark woman, right? A dark-skinned, stereotypical African phenotypical black woman, right? And the red guy, Elias, he is the one with the white woman, but the white woman's name is Mary. Isn't that interesting? That Elijah, the most common spouse name for someone with the name Elijah is the name Mary. I thought that was interesting. Anyway, Elias, right, is a Greek adaptation of the name Elijah. But Elias also means Helios. Oh, let me go back to Elijah. There was something else. The interesting thing about Elijah is Ea, Eas, Iiyas. Eas is a surname for Elijah. Eas. What does that sound like? Ea, Iya, Ea, Eas, right? I thought that was interesting. That's the mother right there, right? And then Elias is the Greek adaptation for the name Elijah, which also means Helios, or the word Eli, or the name Eli, Eli. Now, the reason this becomes significant is because, yes. And so this becomes significant. Thank you, Java Watson. This becomes significant because Elias. Okay, so Samuel is their cousin. Sammy, the guitar player, that's their cousin. Okay, Sammy and Elias are the ones that have the closer relationship. Okay, so Sammy, who is named after Samuel, right, in the Bible, and the verse that refers to this is 1 Samuel 1, 1 verse 3 through 13, is talking about Samuel and his mother, who was Hannah, right? His mother, who was Hannah, was like, look, if you just give me a baby, you feel me? What did that just say when we read that in the Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets? How women would go out to the moon, this vampire stuff now, they would go out to the moon thinking that the moon could get them pregnant, or they wouldn't get married until it was a full moon so they could make sure that they could get pregnant. in the book of Samuel, Samuel 1, 3 through 13, it says that Samuel's mother made a pact with God that if you let me have a baby, if you let me get knocked up, I will commit my baby to your service. You feel me? And so Samuel, she ends up giving Samuel to this prophet named Elias or Eli, right? Elias. And this prophet, Samuel received the calling, just like in this movie. Samuel received this calling that his talents had to go to serve God, right? And so he's hearing this voice in his head, and he thinks it's his teacher, his keeper, calling him. He's like, "Man, I ain't saying nothing. I'm up in here asleep." And so Samuel ends up like beginning to do God's work. Now, back to Elias. His teacher prophet, Samuel, his teacher prophet, whose name is Elias, who is represented by this red dude up here. Listen to what it says. Elias had 2 sons, and his 2 sons was wilding out. They wasn't following the path. They wasn't following the program. They wanted to be out in these streets. It's like, look, we trying to be out in these streets. You know, this little God thing over here, this cool, but that's your lane. That ain't our lane. So Elias, who is a prophet of God, can't get his sons to act right. Meanwhile, Samuel is like doing everything he say, whatever. Elias, right, has 2 sons. His sons' names are Hophni and Phinehas. Hophni and Phinehas. Hophni, who could very well be these 2 brothers, Hophni, his name literally means strong, hard-fisted. Strong and hard-fisted. He a fighter. His other son's name, Phinehas, literally means the serpent's mouth, or an oracle. An oracle, right? An oracle. This is the red guy, okay? Which I found fascinating. So both of them end up dying, Hophni and Phinehas. And yeah. So that's the story of the connection of them and Sammy. Okay, now let's see what time it is. There's something else I want to say about them, but I'll make this like a short ass overview. Okay, so in this relationship, so you got the duality of the red and blue, which is synonymous with the duality of black and white. The duality of the red and blue with these twins, the obvious duality with a love interest, which is the dark skin, obviously African, Afrocentric featured Annie, and the white skinned, white passing lover of the red dude named Mary. Okay, now let's go. Okay, the thing about Mary, everybody is going off either extreme with Mary. Okay, because in this movie, Mary is problematic. Some people are like, oh, it's not about race because she is mixed race and the 1 drop rule, and y'all missing the boat. Mary is a problem. Okay. Now, Mary also represents, because the dynamics, right, of the women that are in this story. But goddess is represented, different phases of the goddess is represented in each one of these women's presentation. Okay. Perline, right? The dark skinned, cute, like Coke bottle figure sister who's married. She represents the seductress, the seductress of the goddess, right? Mary represents the maiden. Even though she is on that bullshit, her innocence, people constantly saying, "Oh my God, little Mary," because they have a memory of her as a child. This is to make her innocent, even as she is doing what she's doing, right? So Mary represents the maiden, right? Annie represents the mother and the crone energy. A lot of people was going off about Annie because they were like, it's messed up how she the one dark-skinned sister up in there, and they gave her the mammy vibe, right? Or whatever. But she doesn't represent a mammy. She represents the dual nature of the mother and the crone. You remember the very first scene in the movie when he goes back to visit her, Blue Smoke, right? He goes to see his child's grave first, and then he goes into the house. So she has been a mother, but she is a grieving mother. Her baby is buried out in the yard, right? And then her wisdom as a root worker is what gives her the crone vibe. But because our language is so limited in the States, people were getting like obviously offended by the sister's character because they was like, why they always got to make the big, the fat Black woman the mammy, and whatever. Even though they tried to make her the object of affection, she was still acting like a mammy. No, she was not. She was acting like the mother crone. She was acting like the mother crone, right? And then child, you was on my nerves. Get down. Okay. So we have to be clear about what it is we're seeing in these dynamics of these women. They all represent different phases of the mother, different phases of the mother. It's interesting that Mary, the white girl, the lone white girl up in the clique, you feel me? Her problem, what she represents, and her problem, first of all, she represents the role, the transformed role of the Virgin Mary within the Christian church. I'm convinced of it. I'm convinced of it. Because here you have the Queen of Heaven. That's Mary. That's who she's fashioned after. The Queen of Heaven, right? Girl, move. I'm about to put your ass outside. Move. Because Mary is the Queen of Heaven. She is fashioned after the Queen of Heaven, right? And so the Queen of Heaven, how was she always pictured? She was not pictured like the Virgin Mary, baby. The Queen of Heaven was always pictured with her titties out, with her coochie out, you feel me? With her rounded hips, because she is the giver of life of all things. You feel me? She's got in both hands the Ankh symbol held in both hands. She's got the tiger clawed feet. She's got the wings because of her connection to the birds, right? And so Mary, as transformed to the image suitable by males, becomes an agent. Really, she becomes an agent. She is transformed into an agent of the Father God. That's what modern Mary represents. She becomes an agent of the Father God. Isn't that what happened in this movie? Here, this girl is white as the day is long. And the other thing I will say about this scenario between the two brothers and this girl, and the peculiar dynamic between these two brothers and this girl, is if she represents Mary as the agent, if she represents Mary as the agent to the Father God, you feel me? Then it makes sense seeing her that way. Because she tells a story. She tells a story several times in this movie where she is angry, she is frustrated, and she tries to check the brothers a few times in the movie because her mother has just passed away. That's why she's back in town. Her mother has passed away. She buried her mother. She tells a story about why y'all ain't come to the wedding. Y'all ain't said no, to the funeral. Y'all ain't said no flowers to the funeral. My mother pretty much raised you. And then she tells another story to this kid, Sammy. She's like, my mother delivered your cousins, the two brothers. My mother delivered them. This is very reminiscent of this other aspect of the twin stories historically. because Romulus and Remus were said to what? That they needed to be hidden, right? They needed to be hidden, and they were in hiding to protect them. They were nursed by a she-wolf. They were nursed by a she-wolf. Okay? This is a part of the mythological story. Because when you look at Gemini as a constellation, they are joined by a black dog. Canis, what is it? Canis Minor. They are joined by a black dog. I'm not going to get that deep into it, but it's just interesting that this girl alludes to this mother that you never meet her, and she died, right? But she says, my mother is the one that pretty much raised these guys. My mother delivered these boys, and they couldn't even send no flowers or go and visit her or whatever, right? That is an alluding to this mythological story about the twins. Again, in many, many, many of these stories, the twins are raised by a mother that is not their own. Okay? All right, cool. So that one aspect, she represents this conduit between this mother that they do not know, that they don't acknowledge or whatever, that raised them, right? And them, this white girl represents. The other thing she represents, more non-mythologically, more culturally, socially, politically, is she represents a couple things. The two main things she represents is the toxicity of white female. What did I write? Because I don't want to misquote. White female entitlement in particular. White female entitlement, right? Her presence is dangerous. Her presence in this space is dangerous, but her entitlement is placed in the center, and secondary to that is she don't even think about it. She don't even think about what her presence in that space represents to the group, not to her, to the group. They kept focusing on this, like, it's not safe for you to be here. If anybody finds you here, you could be in trouble. Nobody ever says, like, bitch, you cannot be here. Don't you know you can't be kicking it in a space full of black people? That represents that threatens our life. That threatens our existence. That threatens our safety. Your white self being up in the space. The reason I say entitlement is because she not only feels entitled to be where she at, no matter who her presence causes a threat to, she also she riding the fence because the dude admits that she is married to a wealthy white man in another state, because in that state they don't know she got a black grandparent. She's a quote octoroon, right? So she got one half black grandparent, which makes her an octoroon. That's why she can pass for white. But she wants the best of both worlds. She wants to be and feels totally entitled to the space where all the black people at. And she also feels entitled to the wealth and the comfort that her white self can provide her. She can slick in and out of realms like a psychopomp. That's what she represents. She represents a psychopomp. She can just easily move between realms. And her entitlement is in the center of her being able to fluidly move from one realm to the other. So she get all extra black. She get all extra sassy when she up in the space with the black folks trying to stage a contest with the red dude Stack, right? And Stack was like, yo, you can't be here. And he was like, you don't want me to get one of these, what do you call them? Like one of these field bitches to drag your ass up out of here. And she was like, can't none of these bitches fuck with me. That's what she said. Can't none of these bitches fuck with me. You the one taught me how to fight. And she started laughing. Like, which one you think can do me, can throw me up out of here? That happened. So she get all, I guarantee you, her white passing self do not go to her wealthy white husband talking that bullshit. You feel me? So this entitlement that is inherent, that in the height of the lynching era in the South, That did not mean shit to her. Even under the guise that, oh, I love him, I love you, and I waited for you, and all of this bullshit, to not even acknowledge, and she ain't stupid. She ain't stupid. To not even acknowledge enough that your presence in this space represents a deadly potential threat to us. Go on about your life. Let's talk some other time, some other place. This ain't the place. That ain't what she did. And it is no coincidence. It is no accident that when them white people, I'm gonna have to backtrack because I was just talking about these dudes. Let me stop here because I don't want to give nothing away that soon. So this is the other problem with this girl, okay? Is she wants the best of both worlds. Her entitlement entitles her to every space. Every space, right? And at the end, guess what? Of all the women highlighted in this movie, all the women that was great actors and had great roles up in this shit, up in this movie, she is the only one that survives in the end. Isn't that a bitch? Isn't that about a motherfucking bitch? That of all the women, the Asian woman, you understand? All the sisters, you understand? The white girl is the one that remains in the end. Everybody else did. Everybody else did. Everybody the fuck else is dead except her and then Stack, the red dude. You feel me? They are the ones that remain. At the whole clique, they the ones that remain. Isn't that something? I say subtle much. And somebody else raised it today like, damn. Here you'd have made this great ass movie with all these wonderful ass black actors. And the only one that has the potential to show up for a sequel or something like that is the white girl. Everybody died. Everybody black. Everybody Asian. They all died. Anyway, so that's my gripe with her. You feel me? Okay. What time is it? Damn, it's 1 already. Okay. So some other things. Let's go ahead and talk about the lead white character who plays the character. What's his name? Remick. And this is what I'm going to leave y'all with because there's still a gang more that we need to talk about. But I think if we talk about the two lead characters played by Michael B. Jordan, and we talked a little bit about Samuel, we still got to talk a lot about him. Talk about these two white girls. I mean, the white girl and the black girl. And I'm going to talk to y'all about Remick because this is the main dynamic is these characters right here. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about Remick, and then we're going to pump the brakes on this for tonight, and then I'll do another one, a part 2 tomorrow, where we'll cover some more ground. But I'm going to talk to y'all about this Remick thing. So, I told you guys a few weeks ago that I am going to do a piece, live called Bad Birds. Remember me telling y'all that I'm working on it, I'm plowing through it, but I'm going to do this piece called Bad Birds. And it's based on an article I read with the same title, Bad Birds, and the history of how these birds got their group names. Okay? Well, one thing that I will reiterate when I do this show on Bad Birds comes up in this breakdown about the bird symbolism in this movie. Okay? Okay. So the vampire, his name is Remick. Okay. There's two things I want to talk about within the context of Remick. Can I cover them both? Yeah. Or should I wait? Okay, I'm gonna talk about Remick, and then I'm gonna save the rest. There's one more thing I want to talk about, but I think I should save it. Okay. All right. Um. Okay. So, quote the master vampire Remick. This particular character, his role in the movie, a lot of people are talking about deeply because Remick is an Irish character. Okay, who appears out of nowhere in the movie at dusk. Okay, his entry into the movie is he appears to actually like fall from the sky. You feel me? And his skin is on fire because it's still daylight outside, and he's a vampire, so his skin is burning. He runs up to this house and he knocks on the door. And the people, both it's a man and a woman, they both have shotguns. They like, who the fuck is you? You feel me? He peeps over one of their shoulders and sees that on their bed there is a clan outfit. There's a clan uniform, top, the little pointy hat, and all of that shit. And so in that instant, even though he is Irish, he recognizes that his white skin can get him into this place that he needs to get into. Even though the whole movie he's talking, let's see. Even though the whole movie he talking about we all in this together and all of this bullshit, that quick he recognizes that his skin can afford him entry into space, right? And so he sees this white couple with a clan outfit. He literally sees it for a second. He's like, "Oh, let me play my white boy card real quick." And he was like, "These Indians." All he had to do was talk about some color folk. "These Indians are chasing me. They trying to rob me." Whatever he say, right? And they was like, "Indians? Oh, there ain't no Indians out here." He's like, "There's Indians following me." And so they let him in the house. They let him in the house. And the Indians roll up behind him. Like they was like, "Look, you don't want you don't want him in your house, man. You need to get him up out your shit. We chasing him for a reason. We trying to help you out. You feel me? I'm just telling you, you don't want them up in there. You don't want them up in there." The interesting thing is when he is running to the house, when he quote appears to drop out the goddamn sky wherever the fuck he came from, he's running to the sky. At the time that he's running to the house, 3 large birds post on the roof of the house as he's approaching the house. Some people have said these birds were vultures. Some people have said these birds were buzzards. Okay. Regardless, the symbolism of buzzards and vultures are relatively the same. Both of these birds are considered psychopomps. The whole idea, the whole mythology, if you will, of the psychopomp is everywhere in this movie. But hell, even the story of the blues, the most famous story of the blues is what? Robert Johnson makes a deal with the devil at the crossroads so that he can become this badass blues player, right? That whole story is about, at least if you have hoodoo, voodoo, or Ifa people tell the story, it is about him making this deal with Alegba, who Europeans subsequently turned into the devil. Okay? Alegba, Eshu, Hermes, Mercury, whoever you want to call him, that energy, crossroads energy, is a psychopomp, is one that ushers people into the spiritual realm. Okay? So psychopomp energy is everywhere. When I tell you everywhere in this movie, undeniable, everywhere. For example, the twins, right? The Gemini twins. Who were they? What is the planet that governs the twins? Now the twins supposedly are given birth to by Virgo, but the planet that is responsible for governing the twins is Mercury. Who is Mercury? Hermes. Who is Mercury? Alegba, a shoe, the psychopomp, right? The communicator between the earthly realm and the heavenly realm. Psychopomp, okay? Is everywhere. So these birds, whether it's vultures or whether it's buzzards, they still have relatively the same kind of meaning and energy, right? They are, because they're both carrion birds. They eat dead flesh. They clean up carcasses, right? And so they're very sacred, these birds. If it's vultures, then hugely sacred. One of the chief mother goddesses of Kemet, Nekbet, is pictured having a vulture's head. Okay, and in Greek societies and Iranian societies, they would not even bury a person until the vultures cleaned the flesh off the bones, and then they would bury the bones. Right? These, as a matter of fact, in ancient Kemet, the word, the hieroglyph for both mother and grandmother is the vulture. Okay, very sacred bird, very important bird, and it's so important that they're saying that men from pre-Roman era up until the 18th century, the Roman Catholic Church up until the 18th century believed that vultures were only females. And so these vultures became synonymous with the virgin birth because they believed that all vultures are female. And so they spontaneously, quote, procreate. Okay? So anyway, so vultures or buzzards have huge, huge goddess worshiping symbolism, but they are also foreboding. Okay? They are foreboding or foretelling. So let me just tell you, I got to stop there. I got to stop there because the vultures, aka buzzards, that show up, and the three of them, who are the three? The three of them that post up on top of the house as this maleficent energy is approaching the house. You feel me? Are foretelling a change in the movie. Okay? Now, it's interesting. I just had a thought. So you got three vultures sitting up on top of these white people roof. These white people are malevolent people. They malevolent, right? Ain't they malevolent? They the clan, right? As a matter of fact, the male that's in the house is the nephew or something of the grand wizard who sold the two brothers the sawmill and was planning on killing everybody in the mill while they was having a party. So was the vampire malevolent in this scene? Was he actually? Because you got the three Ajay sitting up on top of the roof foretelling something sinister in this dude who is approaching the house. But is it sinister? If we just read in Myths and Secrets that the vampire energy is always the mother's energy and our longing for the mother's blood or the moon blood. You feel me? I don't know. I'm just thinking outside the box, right? Okay. So then they let him in, and the Choctaw men, I think it's like 4 or 5 of them, roll up, and one comes to the door. I'm going to save that for tomorrow, but there is a direct connection in the mythology of the Choctaw people in this first scene and their relationship to this vampire who is Remick. I'm going to talk about Remick, and then that's the last thing I'm going to talk about. Remick, it's interesting because in this movie, Remick is Irish, but the name Remick is not Irish. The name Remick, so that was the first thing I did was research the etymology. The name Remick is German and Old English. German and Old English. It doesn't enter into the Irish lexicon until much, much later. Okay? Remick, its German etymology, derives from remigius, which means rower, and remedius, which means cure or remedy. Child, his name means cure or remedy. Okay? Now, and then there is a Slovenian meaning for his name, which breaks down to Remek or Remek, which, listen, which, now this is in Slovenian, okay? Remek, R-E-M-I-C or R-E-M-E-C, which is a bird name. Listen, it is a bird name, Remek, okay? The name of the bird, so it's like a family name, right? Remek, okay? No, it's the bird, it's the name of the bird. The family name is the pendulum tit. The pendulum tit, okay? It is a bird whose actual scientific name is Remizidae, okay? This bird, Remizidae, is a sparrow. It is a sparrow. Why is that important? Anybody remember why the sparrow was important? Because I told y'all. Let me just say that this bird, the Remizidae, a family of sparrows, can only be found in the northern hemisphere. The only place that it can be found in the southern hemisphere is Africa. It's the only place on all of the continents that are below the equator, the southern hemisphere. Africa is the only place where this bird shows up. Isn't that fascinating? I found it fascinating, but let me tell you why. Because sparrows, I told you, I don't know if I told you the whole thing, but I told y'all several times we talked about sparrows. I told y'all I was sitting in here in the living room. I don't remember what was happening, but I was making some jewelry, and a sparrow flew into my living room, perched right on top of my work desk, looked at me for a minute or two, and then my cat started freaking out and tried to jump on the table, and she flew right, a yellow-breasted sparrow, and flew right back out my apartment, right? So the sparrow, so the first thing I thought about, because of the very heavily, overly Christian overtones in this movie, the first thing I thought about when I thought about the sparrow, associated with his name, y'all. His name is rare, Remek, right? I thought about that song, His Eye is on the Sparrow, which is based on a scripture, Matthew 10:29-31, right? And y'all know the song, His Eye is on the Sparrow, so I know he watches me, right? Okay, so Remek, whose name means sparrows, listen. And Remek is blue. Remek is represented by blue. Every time you see Remek in a scene with the two white people, he done turned. They're all dressed in brilliant, bright blue. Brilliant, like royal blue. All three of them. Okay? And so why was the sparrows important? Okay, so the other reason that the sparrow was important, and I associated it with Remek, because again, it says here, Remek is a name given to those who live near the Eden River in Cumberland. The name is given if they reside near a hill, a stream, a church, or a certain type of tree. A certain type of tree. So I was like, damn, the sparrows, right? The cure or the remedy, right? Whatever. There was another story I told you guys about the significance of sparrows in history. So during the I think it was during the Cultural Revolution in China under Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong wanted to, quote, rapidly industrialize the food production process. So he created a campaign against, it was called the Campaign Against the Three, I think he called it the Campaign Against the Three Evils, I want to say, which was mosquitoes, rats, and sparrows. Sparrows in particular were considered to be a pest that was limiting their production of food in the rural regions. And so he, not having any background in agriculture or anything, was like, I got it. If we can get rid of all these sparrows, then we can increase production. So he waged this campaign called something campaign against the three evils or some shit like that. Lead on that list was the sparrows, mosquitoes, and rats. Okay. They had to quickly shut the program down because it didn't take long for them to recognize that, yes, even though the sparrows were eating some of the yield, that the sparrows were the primary animal that was keeping the insect population under control. And so when he waged this campaign to kill all the sparrows in rural China, it ended up creating the greatest famine in the history of the world. Was, I forget, 45 million Chinese people died from famine because of the attack on the sparrows and the trickle-down effect that it had in the entire environment. Locusts were able, there was a plague of locusts that erupted as a consequence of there being no natural predator to eat the locust and keep the locust population under control. And it ended up killing, through starving to death, scores of millions of people during the Cultural Revolution, right? There's so many other stories about sparrows and about sparrows being tied to death. Okay? All right. I thought that was fascinating about his name. I got a little deeper than that, but I will spare you. But you know that song is Eyes on the Sparrow, so I know he watches me. I didn't know it was written by a white woman. It was written by a white woman. Because I only ever heard it sang by black folks. It was written by a white woman. Anyway, so that is Remick. Remick, girl, stop it. Remick, whose name is supposedly who is Irish, right? And recalling colonialism, British colonialism in Ireland. Even the Remick family crest, it's a very uncommon name. Even Remick, the family crest, the family crest is the six-pointed star. What we call the Star of David is the six-pointed star and bilateral stags, which is an image of the goddess. It's the horned stag of the goddess is on their coat of arms, the family coat of arms. So anyway, I think I will say one more thing about Remus. And everybody he ends up turning to vampires. The way you know that they're vampires is their eyes will turn red, like glistening red. So the symbolism of red eyes was myriad, but the one most applicable is red eyes are essentially the evil eye. The evil eye is a malicious glare intended to inflict harm or bring misfortune. And the evil eye is always inspired by envy. It functions like a curse. It is always inspired by envy. Remember before I left last week, I was saying, damn, the word envy keeps coming up. We were talking about headless people and what is the occult or spiritual meaning of one being headless, right? And envy, remember I told you about Solomon, right? And how one of the demons that Solomon was trying to control didn't have a head. And Solomon's like, damn, nigga, why you ain't got no head? He's like, I don't know, I ain't got no head. He was like, well, what's your name? He's like, I can't tell you my name. I don't have a head. He said, I can't tell you that I am the demon of envy. I am the demon of envy. It said, and because I don't have a head and other people have heads, I don't necessarily hate them, but they have something I don't have. And so I kill people for their heads so I can eventually have a head. Envy. This is the impact of envy, right? And so this thing where these vampires have red eyes, that's how you know they've become vampires, is their eyes glisten red, is inspired by envy. Whose envy though? Remick, because Remick is the one that ends up turning everybody. Remick, it is his envy. Why? Because when he meets Samuel, he was called by Samuel. Samuel sang the song, pierced the veil, all the ancestors, all the future progeny, everybody was up on deck. Everybody was up in the building, commits to turning up. You feel me? And so even when Remick and the two vampires at the time come to the spot with their musical instruments, like, yo, we want to have some fun too. We want to sing and we want to dance and we want to drink. Can we come in? They was like, hell no, you can't come in. Why you want to come up in here? Like, they literally said, y'all three take y'all white asses to the white side of town. There's plenty of shit for y'all to do over where y'all be at. There's plenty of shit for y'all to do where y'all be at. Go over there to the white people on them side of town. Y'all can't come up in here. And so they started playing the music. They started playing bluegrass music. And even the red dude, he was like, I don't know, that's kind of jamming. It ain't our thing, but that's kind of jamming, right? And so there is this moment, because what Remick does is attempt to appeal to, quote, the sameness of Black and Irish struggles. Meanwhile, functioning and behaving just like that white girl who wants to be able to, through entitlement, to experience the best of both worlds. I ain't going over here to where the white people at, because the turn up is over here where y'all niggas at. The turn up where y'all at. And when he tells Samuel, when he finally meets Sammy, he was like, you are the one. All this shit you did where you done called out all the future possible progeny and all the ancestors, and you done bridged all the gaps between time and space, because that's what he did. He bridged the time, he bridged the gap between all time and space in there in that juke joint. That's what that boy did when he opened his mouth and when he used his fingers to strum that guitar. He was like, I'm trying to have access to what you have. I'm trying to get what you got. He even tells him later on in this pseudo-baptismal scene, he was like, I need your memories. That's what he told him. I need your memories. That's what he told him. And so he was like, we ain't trying to kick it with white people. Shit. They ain't got shit. We trying to get what y'all got. And so what does he do? Once he is rejected, because the Black people's like, no, motherfucker, you can't come up in here. You got to go on over there where the white people at. And so once he gets rejected, that could have been the end of the story. Because the Black people was like, you can't come up in here. That could have been the end of the story. But what has to happen? The white girl. She's like, y'all know y'all ain't got no money. Let me go out here and get this money for y'all. She goes to talk to them. She's spooked. But it's too late. So the first person to kill anybody, to turn anybody, is this white girl who everybody up in the space except Andy was like, your ass can't be here. Go on about your life. You can't be up in here. So it's not lost on me that the first person who is turned into a vampire, the first person who is killed, is at the hands of this white girl. As a matter of fact, Stack, the first person she attacks is him. She loves him. I love you. I love you. The first person she attacks is Stack. She ends his life. And then he's resurrected. She done turned him into a monster. That's what she did. She turned it. As a matter of fact, Annie says, because they was like, what are these things? And she said, she thought they were haints. This is old Southern, mythology. She thought these were haints. And there was a moment she was like, oh, these ain't haints. She said, these are vampires. These are vampires. These are people whose souls are trapped in their bodies. I'm going to have to put the brakes on this because I can't give it away until we can talk about it in depth tomorrow. I'm sleepy, but the distinction that this system makes between the haint and the vampires is important as we transition into this next section, because I'm going to be talking to you about the next thing. The very first thing tomorrow is about Choctaw symbolism and how prevalent it was in the movie. Everybody just skips over the Choctaw like, oh yeah, and there was some Native people up in the room. The symbolism, the mythology of Choctaw people. I'm Choctaw, by the way. The symbolism, and the symbolism and the mythology of Choctaw people, their creations, all of that shit is in this movie. Choctaw creation story is in this movie. What else? Choctaw meaning of the birds, mythologically, is in this movie. This thing that I was just talking to you about, how she made the distinction between haints and vampires, and she says that vampires, their soul is trapped within their flesh. Their soul is trapped within their flesh. Choctaw, these men that rode up behind Remick when he got up on the white people porch, the men that we just think are regular everyday Choctaw people represent three characters. These men represent three characters in traditional Choctaw mythology. So do even the snake at the very beginning, when we see them going to do business in town, we go see them, and they go into the back of the truck and pull the palm leaves out of the way, and there's a rattlesnake coiled up in the truck, and smoke kills him, right? That scene is a whole story in Choctaw mythology. That story in Choctaw mythology is called the origin of all poison. The origin of all poison is Choctaw mythology represented in that instant in the scene, in the conflict that they had with the serpent. I was up in here amazed just on the study of the Choctaw section and how deep it shows up in the movie. And the Choctaw is just relegated to this one scene where they happen to show up with guns to address the dude, but their mythology is replete through the whole movie. Fascinating. Yep. So I think that is where I am going to end here at 1:39 because I am sleepy. My eyelids is fighting to stay open. Yep. I think that's where I'm going to stop. Yep, that's where I'm going to stop. So hopefully that was helpful in some way. For me, I think it's profound. I think I did a pretty good job at organizing that so I can deliver it pretty quick tomorrow. Yes. I think tomorrow I will spend a little bit more, but we're going to start with the Choctaw stories because that I feel like y'all are going to be really fascinated to hear and really blown away when you hear the mythology of the Choctaw and then the ways that it showed up in the movie. Not subtle either, like big. Okay, so that is that. Yeah. Oh, damn, what did I do with it? Okay, so yeah, that's it for tonight. I'm going to come back again tomorrow. I don't know what time yet. We're going to come back again tomorrow and pick up with a discussion on the Choctaw, on Sammy, on the love and hate of Black Joy. We're going to talk about the Irish and the Klan tomorrow, and I think that's all we're going to talk about. Yeah, like I said, it's probably going to be a 3 or 4 part series because it's still a lot more after that. Yeah, those are the things we'll talk about tomorrow. All right. Email me at evoemetemp@gmail.com. I've been getting a lot of timestamps over the last week for old videos, like old. And that has been so much fun. It's been really fun going back to videos that are 3, 4, 5 years old. And people are like, oh my God, you were talking about this very thing 3 years ago or 5 years ago. that shit has been dope. I've been getting a lot of timestamps on old videos that, child, are so on time for what is happening over the last 2 weeks. So um, go through, go through and see if you find anything that is useful now. The last 2 months of videos have been real intense as we're preparing for our response to the 1700 anniversary of the Council of Nicaea and the founding of the Roman Catholic Church as a state religion. Because yes, I've gotten several questions from you guys in emails like, are we still going to do the thing on May 20th? Since the Pope has transitioned, I guarantee you they will be appointing someone before that event on May 20th. So, also, last thing I'll say is for the spring equinox, I sent you guys 3 names that we were going to focus on because we did that Kali Puja. And so the energy was about destruction. You feel me? And so we did that. We did that ceremony for the spring equinox. I represented the end of the Kali Yuga. And I gave y'all 3 names. Yesterday, I got a text from one of you saying that the number 1 name on that list that I gave you is under fire right now, like heavy fire. So these little displays of collective intention and will that we've been doing since November 19th, they work. They work. And the evidence that they work is some of these headlines. So, yeah. So again, no matter how long ago it is you planted your seed, you conducted your ceremony, you participated, even if it was via Zoom, in some ceremony that we did November 19th, or the full moons, the new moons, whatever. Baby, remember your list. Remember your names on your list, because they are showing up on our list every day. every day. Every day. People are sending me stuff regularly. Y'all, you remember the thing we did on November 19th? This dude was on my list. This person was on my list. So, yeah, just in the last week and a half, 2 of the people on our list are already under heavy, heavy, heavy fire. Okay? So that just informs us of what we need to do in preparation for May 20th. We don't need to let our guard down. We need to advance. We don't need to retreat. We need to advance. You feel me? Okay. Now I'm done. Good night. Send me an email at evoemetemp. If you feel so inclined, which I encourage you to feel inclined, send a donation to that same email if you have Zelle, to Cassandra-Floyd. If you have Venmo, to $DaughterOfTheFates. If you have Cashapp, and @Iapo and Gina if you have PayPal. That information is also underneath the video. Those methods that you can use to make a donation contribution to the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence. I'm telling y'all that a lot of hours have gone into the preparation for this deep dive I'm about to do with y'all, or finish with y'all. But I can tell you already, half the shit I discussed tonight ain't nope you are not going to see anybody talking about in a breakdown of this movie. I can already tell you. Nobody is talking deeply. I've heard some people give superficial, like, oh, red mean bad, blue mean good type of shit. But ain't nobody going into no deep dive about the historical significance of the duality of red and blue, and how these 2 men are the personification of this duality of red and blue, right? Or even the hinting at the she-wolf nursing of these twin boys, or the twin boys being a representation of the mythological significance of the astrological sign Gemini. Nobody's talking to y'all about that. And that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the depth of preparation that I've done. And so I know y'all be looking forward to me doing movie reviews. So make sure you make nice nice contributions and donations to the work that went into the execution of this thing here. Okay. All right. That's all I got to say to you. Email me if you have any insights, anything like the person earlier. Make sure you send me emails of stuff that you intend for me to like incorporate or use. I will cite you, and this is the process right here. Okay. All right. Good night. I will see y'all tomorrow. Probably early because I have sitar lessons tomorrow and some jewelry orders to fill. Oh, go to my jewelry store. DaughterOfTheFates.etsy.com. DaughterOfTheFates.etsy.com. All right, now I'm done. Peace.